I have good news and bad news. The good news is that a record low 20% of Americans believe the Bible is literally true. That's according to a recent Gallup poll, and the number is down from a record high of 40% in 1984. The bad news is that I'm almost certain that all 20% of those Americans are in elected office. You can guess which party. But let's start with the good. The same Gallup poll saw an all-time high of 29% of Americans correctly identifying the Bible as a collection of fables, legends, history, and moral precepts recorded by man. I know that number is shockingly low, but it's an improvement, because America. It's actually surprisingly high compared to just a few years ago. In 2017, the side that says the Bible is a book of fairy tales outnumbered the literally true side by just 2%. 26% compared to 24% respectively. But that difference has now jumped to 9%, suggesting a growing gap between Americans who live in a fantasy world and those of us who accept reality. Meanwhile, roughly half of Americans, 49%, believe the Bible is inspired by God, but not meant to be taken literally. Those people are what creationists refer to as heretics. Interestingly enough, that number has been fairly steady over the past few decades. So the growth of people rejecting the Bible as fact is either the result of people making a journey from literally true to inspired by God to Book of Myths, or leapfrogging over that middle section entirely. None of this should come as a huge surprise, though, given that the United States has seen a rise in secular Americans for the past 2 decades. In fact, fewer than half of all Americans now say they are 100% certain of God's existence. That number is, I know, remarkably and disappointingly high, but it's still heading in the right direction, down. Gallup also found a similar decline in the number of Americans who say religion is very important in their lives, which suggests those two things are linked together. The less important religion is to you, the less likely you are to treat a holy book as if God hand wrote it, or vice versa. Either way, congratulations to all of you atheist activists out there who have helped move the needle. Now, not all the numbers make logical sense. Gallup says 16% of self-identified Christians believe the Bible is a book of fables, which means there are Christians out there, a whole bunch of them, who say, this book is totally made up, and I'm gonna base my entire life around it. There are actually some Christian denominations that don't treat the Bible like fundamentalists, but I'm still shocked that the number is that high. On the flip side, 6% of non-religious and non-Christian Americans believe the Bible is the actual Word of God. I mean, what's going on in their minds? Who is out there saying, God wrote this book, and the only way to achieve salvation is through Christ, but you know, I got stuff to do. Do they recognize the cognitive dissonance? Who knows? They're either very confused or extremely unconcerned about their eternal fate. Which matters, since they apparently think that is something you need to be concerned about. Here's what's not surprising. Gallup found that the more often you go to church and the less formal education you have, the more likely you are to believe the lie that the Bible is literally true. That's the group I like to call Ken Ham's core constituency. Now, all of this would be cause for at least some celebration, if not for the fact that so many prominent, powerful, elected Republicans and their allies believe the Bible is literally true and that it ought to be a guidebook for our nation. The fabulous journalist Catherine Stewart recently wrote in the New York Times, Breaking American democracy isn't an unintended side effect of Christian nationalism. It is the point of the project. There are so many fundamentalists who believe the Bible should supersede the Constitution when it comes to laws they don't like. And as we've seen with reproductive rights and vaccine mandates and public school curricula and more, the biblical literalists are eager to impose their beliefs on the vast majority of Americans who don't share their faith, much less an extremist interpretation of their holy book. That should scare all of us, some Christians included. It's almost bizarre that people who are this deluded, that they think God created the world with two literal humans to begin with, are somehow better at playing politics than everyone else out there. But their side votes like their eternal fate depends on it. Our side does not, and we're paying the price for that. You know what's really messed up about that? Biblical literalists don't even agree on what the Bible literally says. While the Gallup survey doesn't go into this, I'll give you just one example of what I mean. There are creationists who believe the Bible is a few thousand years old and was created in 6 literal 24-hour days. While other Christians, who would also say the Bible is literally true, accept evolution because they believe Genesis isn't meant to be treated as a science book. Even televangelist Pat Robertson, who built his whole career on selling the Bible as true to very gullible old people, has said, I don't think most Christians are stupid enough to buy into young earth creationism. Do you know how dumb you have to be for Pat Robertson to call you stupid? The bottom line, fewer Americans are biblical literalists. That's fantastic. Those biblical literalists still can't get their story straight. That's hilarious. And those biblical literalists still wield plenty of power over our political process. That is terrifying. It's hard to be happy about number 1 until we've solved the problems created by number 3.